Hi, everyone. This is Tracy Hellwinkle with Trees Knoxville. This is our third take. So everyone who is in our chat room, thank you for your patience today. Today we have Pastor Chris Battle with us, and we are taping this tree talk, and it will be on our YouTube site and our website. So feel free to go back and look at it. I find that that's very helpful. I'm going to go ahead and introduce Chris. Chris Battle is a native of Cincinnati, Ohio. He moved to Knoxville in 2008 to serve as pastor of the Tabernacle Baptist Church. In 2018, the trajectory of his life took a drastic change when he became concerned about food disparity in his community. He is married to Julia Tama Battle, and they have 20 children. Take it away, Chris.
Again, good afternoon. And again, I want to thank Trees Knoxville for allowing me this opportunity to share my passion, my heart, and the concern that I have for our community. I think you all would agree that, all right, this isn't working. Let's see here. I can't get my thing to move. Let's see here. There we go. I think everyone would agree that food is essential to life. You don't eat, you die. But yet in 2017, an estimated 1 out of 8 Americans were considered food insecure, which is equals about 40 million Americans, 12 million which are children, did not have adequate food. Now, the USDA defines food insecurity as a lack of consistent access to enough food, fresh fruits and vegetables, for an active, healthy life. So 40 million Americans in 2017 did not have access to fresh fruits and vegetables on a consistent basis. What I learned a few years ago was that my community is in a food desert. A food desert is a subset of food insecurity, and it's defined as a neighborhood where there is little or limited access to healthy and affordable food, such as fruits and vegetables, whole grains, low-fat milk, and other foods that make up the full range of a healthy diet. The USDA also suggests that there are 2 factors that lead to an area being considered a food desert. One is based on income. If a census tract where at least 20% of the residents are below the poverty level, below the poverty level would be for about 20,000 for a family of 3. And if 1/3 of the population lives 1 mile or more from the nearest grocery store, supermarket, or farmer's market. So a food desert, if 1/3 of the community is more than 1 mile away from the nearest grocery store, and in that census tract, 20% of the community is below the poverty level, then that area is considered a food desert. I lived in a 37915 zip code. And when I realized this, I realized that we were definitely in a food desert. You will note that we're surrounded by grocery stores. There's a Kroger on Asheville Highway, Kroger on Broadway, and the Kroger on Chapman Highway. There's also a Save-A-Lot on Martin Luther King. There's a Food City on Western Avenue. There was Publix on campus. And then there was Walmart over there in Easttown Mall. Where the cross is where the church where I was pastoring was located. And again, remember, if 1/3 of the population is more than 1 mile away from the grocery store or farmer's market, then you're considered a food desert. From where I lived, it was 2.5 miles to Save-A-Lot. It was 2.7 miles to the Kroger on Broadway, 2.8 miles to the Kroger on Asheville Highway, 3.3 miles to the Food City on Western, 3.7 to the Kroger's on Chapman Highway, 4.2 miles to the Publix on campus, and 5 miles to Walmart. I think you can see that we were more than in a food desert. Now, there is a green grocery food store on Magnolia. And I went in there to see, hey, maybe our area isn't a food desert. But when I went in there, I could get lottery tickets, tobacco, and beer, but I could not get an apple or any collard greens because they sold no fresh fruits or vegetables. Sadly, these food deserts are considered also places of food apartheid because these areas often are predominantly affecting communities of color and of low income. But not only are we suffering from inadequate nutritious food, food deserts are also surrounded by what is called a food swamp. And a food swamp is an area that has 4 unhealthy eating options for every 1 healthy option. So for every grocery store, if you would, there would be 4 unhealthy eating options. And we're going to note that from that I lived in a area that was not only a food desert, but it was also a food swamp. So if I went to my Kroger on Asheville Highway from my house, I would pass a KFC, Captain Jack's, Arby's, Little Caesars, McDonald's, Long John Silver's, Pizza Palace, Red Fez Deli, and of course, Buddy's Barbecue, and as well as Hardee's. So if a food swamp is 4 to 1, we see now that we are about 5 to 1. So not only did we not have access to healthy food, unhealthy food and fast foods were predominant in the community. You see, for us and who live in the 37915, our greatest threat was not the drive by, but it's the drive through. What we're putting in our bodies is literally killing us. And understand, if you don't have transportation, if you don't have a car, and you have a couple of kids in tow, it gets very difficult to get to the grocery store. And not only do we have a lot of fast foods, we don't have the grocery stores, farmers markets available. We are inundated with dollar stores. So we got all these fast foods here, and then we got, I'm sorry, I was given this unverified statistic, and when I share it, this is usually the response, that 70% of the community are buying their groceries at dollar stores. 70% of the community is buying their groceries at dollar stores. Usually when I tell people that who live in the community, they say, you think it's that low? So people are doing their grocery shopping at the dollar stores. And so we got Family Dollar everywhere. We got Dollar Trees, we got Dollar Generals all around us, but we don't have grocery stores. We can walk to the dollar stores, we can walk to the fast food, but we don't have access to adequate nutritious food. Of course, if you don't have access to healthy, nutritious food, as somebody said, you are what you eat. And as a result, we see in our community increased risk of heart disease, hypertension, mortality, cancer, obesity, and diabetes. These are those diseases that plague our community, and much has to do with the diet. And your zip code should not determine your accessibility to affordable and adequate food. Sadly, in 37915, there is no grocery store. There is no grocery store in the 37915 zip code. Key findings, there's a strong correlation between food deserts and high obesity rates. Residents in food deserts tend to pay more for food. Cost at corner stores are from 7% to 25% higher than at the grocery stores. And I think we all know that food, the dollar stores are literally ripping you off because you're paying more for less in the long run. And of course, a lack of grocery stores has a strong downward pull on the area economic development. There are 4 pillars of food security. One is availability. If food is available, we believe the community will buy it. But again, if I don't have transportation, I got a couple of kids in tow, that makes availability limited. Secondly, accessibility. It's okay to be available, but if it's not accessible, if I can't get to it, then we have another issue. And thirdly, affordability. Good, nutritious, wholesome food is expensive. You know, if I get a chance, if you can go get a whole lot of food at McDonald's that will kill you, as opposed to buying a nutritious dinner at the grocery store. We know Whole Foods prices are a lot higher than they are at the dollar store, and that's my point. So food needs to be available, it needs to be accessible, and it needs to be affordable, and as well as there needs to be applicability. And what I mean by that the quality of food that we get needs to be high. It can't be secondhand, can't be one day before the expiration. So the question was posed to me, how does our church respond? In 2018, when our church responded by starting a community garden. We started a community garden. We had a little plot in the back of the church, and we had about 16, 12 plots. They were 10 by 17. And I reached out to the people in the community, and we began our little community garden. It was a wonderful event. As you can see, it was pretty productive. People enjoyed it. There were a lot of people who were older, who had never gardened before. We had young people, groups, Sunday school groups. The young men that you see here are from Phi Beta Sigma, a fraternity from UT. They too had their youth groups there, and people were excited about working in the garden. So our first way of attempting to fight this food desert was to start this community garden. I also reached out to some other pastor friends of mine who had empty plots, and they too started some. We also reached out to a corner store that had an empty plot, and they also started a community garden. In our garden, we had the fence there, and we called it the gleaning fence. And as you see there, that all fruits and vegetables on the fence were free. And it's based off the Jewish concept of gleaning, leaving the corners of your field unharvested for the poor. Leviticus 19 teaches us that, says, when you reap the harvest of your land, do not reap the very edges of your field or gather the gleanings of your harvest. Do not go over your vineyard a second time or pick up the grapes that have fallen. Leave them for the poor and the foreigner. I am the Lord your God. And so from this concept, we let everything that was on the fence that was free to the public. What was wonderful about it is that, of course, if you grow some squash, you're going to grow more than one squash. You're going to have a lot of squash. You're going to have a lot of corn. You're going to have a lot of zucchini. You're going to have a lot of okra. You're going to have a lot of tomatoes. And what happened was, and I did not ask those who were in the who served in the community garden, but they began to put stuff in the on the gleaning fence as well. And it was exactly what we wanted to do in my mind, to begin to start this sense of community. So we had the community garden, we had 2 or 3 more in the community, but I was still feeling like that just wasn't enough to address this issue of being in a food desert and food insecurity. So I reached out to Nourish Knoxville, and I said, hey, how about getting a farmer's market over here in the community on the east side? Charlotte Tolley and Kim Pettigrew came. They said, well, we know that there are some other groups that wanted to do a farmer's market. So I reached out to Women in Agriculture, Vivian Williams, Seed, Stan Johnson, 5 Points Up, Tanisha Baker, as well as our church. And together we started the East Side Sunday Market. It goes from Sundays from 1 to 4 p.m., June through September. At that point, initially we were meeting in the parking lot in the field at the church. The second year we moved across to Dr. Walter Hardy Park. So this past year was our 3rd year of operation of the Eastside Sunday Market. All of that was just in order that we might be able to fight this this plague of food disparity in the community. Well, you see down there in the right-hand corner, in the bottom right corner, it says Abbey Field Farms. Well, the farm operator of Abbey Field left, and they needed somebody to run the farm. And for some reason, I raised my hand, and I became the farm operator of what is now known as Battlefield Farm. So if you want some fresh vegetables, come see your BFF. Battlefield Farm was located by the old Standard Knitting Mill on Washington, but it was sold. It was sold last year, and so we had to move. There was a couple who was very kind to us and allowed us to use their 4 acres that they had on Delrose, and so we farmed there this year. And I also purchased a plot on Boyd's Bridge Pike, and that's where we're going to be farming this year. So that's my presentation. We're also looking to get some property on Martin Luther King to start a fruit farm in the midst of the community. I can just imagine being able to walk down the street in the hood and stopping and getting a peach or a pear or a cherry or an apple or some grapes or what have you. So that's my dream. That's my vision for the community in fighting food disparity. That's my presentation. I'll be glad to entertain any questions if you have any.
Thanks for that, Chris. I think it's really important to bring these issues up and just let people know that they're out there. It's a great story. And when Chris and I met and talked about all this too, and he mentioned to me about setting up an orchard on Martin Luther King. So that was something that really definitely, made my ears stand up a little bit. And then Chris, you had also mentioned the property on Boyd's Bridge, how you weren't only going to farm that, you were thinking about turning a part of that into like a hiking trail with an arboretum. Is that correct?
That is true.
Yeah. So, Chris is doing a lot of work out there trying to expand this information and do things in the community. As far, and Chris and I almost live we do live in the same neighborhood now. We're only like half a mile from each other. So there is a big problem with food and not, people not having access to that. And I think one of the ways we can confront that and solve it is to have, smaller farms where people can walk to, and, if we can use the city lots, see there's empty city lots, and we can, use those, turn those into orchards. So that would definitely probably help with a lot of things, because when we did that, I did help plant a food forest over at Seed, and people walked up there and went through there and would, pick the pick the peaches off the trees and do all the things. So, it's an important thing. People want fresh food. Don't you agree, Chris?
I agree totally. What we've learned is that if it's affordable, if it's available, if it's accessible, people will get it. We did a survey at the at the market, and 80% of the people said, "Hey, if fresh fruits and vegetables were here, we would buy it, we would eat it," you know. I have a little funny little stories. The first year, the farmer from Abbey Field was selling kohlrabi, and I went up to her. I said, "Baby, black folk don't eat kohlrabi. We don't even know what kohlrabi is." And so she got some and cut it up. And there was a guy that was selling honey and started dipping. Everybody fell in love with kohlrabi. That was 3 years ago. People are still coming back to experience kohlrabi. They're still looking for kohlrabi. And I think, it's about exposure. It's about, again, availability and affordability. And I think that would make a significant difference. And if it's there. And I think that would I know it would lead to much healthier communities.
I do have some questions coming up in the chat, Chris, and some comments, so I'll read those out. I heard about the farmers market by word of mouth. If there was better publicity, I bet it would be real busy. And then the question after that, this is by the same person, is irrigation an issue?
Well, thank you. Well, I'm glad you heard. At least I'm glad you heard of it. We've been putting out flyers and using Facebook as our main source of publicity. But keep spreading the news. If you heard about it, make sure you share it with somebody else. And we would glad. We're small. We're a small farmers market, but we have been this year we had less people, but we sold more produce, which is, I guess, a good thing. But we're looking for more people to get involved in the community. Is irrigation an issue? Yes, irrigation is an issue for my farm, but we're collecting water. We got an IBC tank that we're going to be setting up, and if I can find another one, that'd be wonderful. But we're also getting KUB water as well. So yes.
Let's see. This says, Chris, wasn't there supposed to be a supermarket as part of the 5 Points redevelopment?
Yeah, that was before I got here. But yes, there was supposed to be a supermarket. There actually was a small grocery store over there. From what I understand, Axel, was that it was really bad management. It was bad management more than lack of desire to go there and purchase food. So that's been my understanding. That was really a bad business plan, and bad management is why it didn't work out. But I think I got here in 2008, and I think that was right about the year that it ended up closing.
Yeah, I had gone in that market. I was an AmeriCorps at Beardsley Farm when that opened, and we would deliver food to some of the food pantries over here on the east side. And my fellow AmeriCorps member and I went in there, and it was very clean. It was very nice, but there was definitely, and there was some fresh fruit, but it definitely was not top quality. And it looked a little old, and there were lots of shelves without food, so that was kind of interesting that it was, I think they tried really hard, and it's a great location. It's a perfect location for a grocery store. I think that was a good idea, but it just didn't take off, probably before its time. Okay, so I have another question here from Caesar, and he asks, how are you funded?
Through the kindness of people's hearts. Yeah. I've had a few churches and some kind people who just reached out and to help. We're working on our 501c3. I'm hoping to have that by the beginning of next year. And but yeah, it's really just been the kindness of people, the generosity of people who just reached out and wanted to help. And of course, we've had a lot of volunteers who've come out to support, which helps a lot, because I was not a farmer. So I still have a whole lot to learn. But so I'm thankful for the volunteers, grateful for those who have supported us financially to make this thing happen.
Okay, there's a series of questions here in the chat. Pierce got busy over here, and it says, Chris, love what you're doing. What are you thinking about for the off-season winter periods when fresh foods and vegetables aren't available? Second question, have you considered teaching folks how to can and or freeze veggies for the winter? And I'll let you answer those because then there's still some more, and teaching people how to cook with fresh foods. Methodist Hospital in Memphis has had some great luck with teaching people how to cook cooking healthy foods.
Right. Well, thanks for that question, Pierce. So this off season, we're just trying to get the new spot together. We're putting up the shed and the high tunnel and the chicken coop and everything. And actually, we are going to make this. We're still going to be using the 4 acres on Delrose, and so the farm on Boyd's Bridge is going to be more of a teaching farm. We got a couple of classes that are going to be coming. Schools that we got a homeschool group that's going to be coming there. The YWCA, the Phyllis Wheatley YWCA, has reached out to me, so I'm going to actually be teaching there. They have a garden and a little greenhouse there, and so we'll be teaching there. We're going to be opening up for the community to come and to learn about gardening in your yard and what have you. So that's what's going to be happening this winter, and in terms of teaching and healthy cooking, we're looking to have actually have a cook come there and teach people how to cook the food from the garden. So yeah, that all that's a part of the plan. And we're just looking forward to some great things happening with that.
Yeah, because Chris, you just started this like a couple of years ago, right? If even.
Yes, sir.
Like a year.
I'm sorry. Yes, ma'am. I said yes, sir.
That's all right. I'm fluid. I'm gender fluid. We're good.
Yeah. I'm looking at Fred right here. I'm looking at Fred, and I'm talking to you.
Sorry. No, I'm just kidding. So didn't you just start, like, I'm trying to think of when you took over Abbey Field. Wasn't that, I mean, that was just like 2 years ago. It wasn't that long ago, 2 or 3 years ago.
It was 2018. Yeah, no, actually 2019. 2019 is when I took it over. Yeah.
Yeah, you were only there like a month or two when the Standard Knitting Mill sold, right?
Yeah, it was right about, we had finished the season out and had a real good season, did over 700 pounds of produce. And I mean, it was pretty good considering I didn't know what I was doing. But yeah, so we were only able to farm there one season, and then they sold it, and they said I was a liability, so I had to leave.
What can we do about that? Those people from out of state. Just kidding. Are there any more questions for Chris? It's kind of quiet in the chat. If you want to unmute yourself and join the conversation a little bit too, if you feel more confident doing that, you can do that as well.
I will try. I'm having internet connection issues. I don't know if my chat went through, so forgive me if I
I see it now. Okay, go ahead.
Fade out. Recently heard you speak at the Citizens Climate Conference in August on environmental justice and was really fascinated by your work, and had hoped to get back in touch with you actually earlier this semester, but it's been a very busy semester. I would love to help organize some student volunteers to come out and work on anything you need. And in fact, we've been trying to get a student club up and running that I would love to have you come to talk about some of these issues with students that I think they don't really realize how close to home they hit. Yeah. And I think it would be really great to sort of bring that to their attention. I know that on campus we have lots of resources for students who are having trouble meeting food needs, but I think to see it in the broader community is also very important.
Cool. Well, I put my my email in the chat, so feel free to email me, Catherine, and we'll be glad to do what we can to work with you. I need all the help I can get. Trust me.
I know, right? So yeah, I was just gonna say, Chris, if you want, I don't see it in the chat, but I can put it in. I can put it in real fast here too. And I can also, Chris, is it okay when I post this video if I put your email in the description section if anyone would like to contact you?
Oh, that's fine. Yeah, I'm sorry. I see what I did.
Yeah, mine went away. I can't copy it.
Can you see it now?
Yes. Yes. Okay. Oh yeah, because I have a different email, so I'm glad I didn't post it. Let me write that one down. Do you have a website, Chris?
No, I don't. No, I don't. We have a Facebook page.
And would that be Battlefield Farm? Okay. So if anyone is, I'll put that in there. So it's at Battlefield Farm. And that way, if anyone would like to keep up with you and, you know, see how you're growing and or share and or help you with volunteers, they know where to find you.
They can hear my chicken jokes too.
They're pretty good chicken jokes. Chris actually he has a TikTok and he does his chicken jokes on TikTok. So you should check him out. What's your handle? What do you go under on TikTok, Chris?
Papa Bear 20.
There you go. So if anyone wants to go look at some chicken jokes, go to Papa Bear 20 on TikTok. And they're pretty good. They're pretty funny jokes. All right. Anything else? Would anyone like to add anything?
This is Caesar Stair. I just wanted to ask Catherine, are you at Pellissippi or where are you when you talk about students?
Oh, no, I'm at UT Knoxville. I'm a natural resource and environmental economics student. And right. I've been doing work in public policy. And we actually did a couple classmates and I did a research project this semester, actually based on Mr. Battle's discussion in that conference I mentioned on the perceptions of students about food issues to them and within the community that they live. So.
Right. Chris, I know that Brad.
And also a volunteer forester, right, Catherine? Yep. You're also a volunteer forester, just so you know, Susan.
Hey, Chris, I know that you've also were in the same class with Brad Moats of the Master Gardeners. And, you know, he's doing exactly what you're doing. He's trying to feed the students out of Pellissippi State who, you know, they found out that they, you know, under the Tennessee Promise, they can get their tuition paid for, but they don't have enough money to buy food. And then when they get fresh food, they don't know how to cook it, et cetera, et cetera. They don't know what kohlrabi is or a lot of these other things. So I don't know if you've touched base with him lately or not, but y'all might have some common issues and common problems that you could help each other with.
We'll definitely reach out to him. Yeah. And again, that's part of the problem too. People just don't cook as much as they used to anymore. Right. And so, yeah, so, you know, it's you know, the joy of cooking and sitting down at the table and eating together. Those seem like something of the past. And so, yeah, I think we're going to have to really retrain people's minds to do these things and to really start getting back to the earth. But you would think that this pandemic would really teach us that, you know, I'd rather have some tomatoes in the backyard than having to go to the grocery store and see that there are none there, you know, but yeah.
I did want to ask one additional question.
Sure.
In the spring, there was briefly a climate committee for Trees Knoxville. And one of the things we were discussing or that got brought up with potential funding for an urban green space was some of the large insurance companies are actually funding these projects because they are seeing reduced like output cost-wise that they have to face if a community has better health in the long run. And I just didn't know, I know you were talking about you sort of get funding from all sorts of different sources. I didn't know if that would help. I know that there have been a number of times where they've funded, and it's not just edible gardens, but just green spaces. And I would think even more so with a garden that's providing better nutrition, they would be likely to support that. If you would like that information, I can send it on, though I'm sure you can find it on your own. I just didn't know if that sort of funding would help.
Yeah, any kind of funding would help right now. But Rick, yeah, send me an email and we'll chat, maybe have coffee sometime and like that.
All right. Anyone else? Oh, wait.
I would just ask Chris, what are your, if you had 5 needs or 5 wishes, what are your primary needs right now to help you at the farm? If you were to list them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Well, definitely. Number one, the money and volunteers. We got a whole lot of setting up to do. I got to get a lot of raised beds and things like that. We got to put fencing up. And it's just real expensive. We're trying to finish up the tool shed and the farm stand. So those would be the 2 needs. And then we're going to be needing, I don't really need tools and everything. I have almost everything I need. I just need to get the land together itself, and I need a lot of good soil, because we did the soil testing there. It wasn't too positive. Caesar. So yeah, food, funds, volunteers, or if somebody would like to donate some raised beds or things like that, those would be the primary needs.
Right. Okay. Thank you. I appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you.
There is a question from Ross. Okay, I'm sorry, Chris.
This was not my plan for life, but I have found more joy, more peace doing this than anything I've ever done in my life before. And I've been pastoring for almost 40 years now. And, getting out of the church and into the dirt really makes a difference,
And
at least it has for me.
There is a question in the chat, but that's something Chris and I had talked about too. There's something about, and I think we experience this when we plant trees as well, even, in the parks or wherever we're doing it. Something happens when you work together with the soil, when you work together with the dirt, and you get together and you do something positive like that, whether it's gardening or planting trees. You build relationships. You really do when you work with people like that and volunteer. I think it puts us in a different place too. I think it really helps build community. So here's your question. It's from Rosalind. Have you had any connection with UT Culinary Institute?
No, is that the same that does the canning? Is it?
I don't know.
I met with, it's not the same. Okay. No, I have not.
They train students to be chefs, but they do, well, at least when we were still eating on campus, they would cater events for administrators, or I think you could rent them too, but they were definitely looking to source more food locally. And I don't know whether they have volunteer projects for their students, but they used to have themed lunches where they cooked food, experimented with food from different parts of the world. So they seem a bit creative. I mean, their food is very good. I experienced it when I was an administrator, but I do remember hearing the directors say that they were trying to source more and more of their food locally. So it wouldn't hurt to connect with them and just announce your presence, because you never know, they might, if you say that you it just might be interesting for the students. Given the farm to table movement, for the students, or some students who are interested to come and visit your farm.
Well, thank you. I'll definitely reach out to them. Thank you.
I have a question, Chris. During your presentation, you talked about correlations. I think it was food deserts and health, that areas that are food deserts also have, higher obesity and heart disease and things like that. So this would be a personal opinion because I know that you haven't studied it, but what do you think about, could there be a correlation between food deserts and lack of tree canopy?
Yeah, I'm sure there is. I mean, because most of your food deserts are in relatively urban areas or very, very rural. But in terms of urban areas, absolutely, I think there's definitely a correlation between lack of tree canopy and food deserts. Absolutely.
Any PhD students out there, that could probably be a thesis. You're welcome. All right. So do we have any more questions for Chris?
I just had one a thought that came to my mind when you were talking about connecting with the UT Culinary Institute. And it occurred to me, and also what, Chris, you were saying about, or maybe Tracy, you were saying that young people don't cook that much anymore. And, and I know because my daughter is one of those that kind of tends to, she likes those online places where you can order good fresh meals in a kit, fresh something, there's several of them, but I wonder if that might be something down the road, in the business plan to create some sort of business where the students would create these kits, these meal kits, and then, using produce from the farm and put together a meal kit, with seasonings and directions and all that. I don't,
the possibilities are endless. I am learning to just say, okay, Chris, you can't do everything. Okay. So what we've been doing, the first year we had CSAs, and I'm sure everybody, CSA is when people would give me X amount of dollars and I would provide them fresh vegetables for 20 weeks. And what we did with that was we put recipes in the boxes with them. Ideally, we wanted to make the boxes so you could actually make a meal with it. So yeah, that would be something that we would think about doing for sure. But we haven't got to that point. Yet, but yeah. Hopefully we'll grow there.
Long-term goals, right?
Yeah, long-term.
Yeah. Could I ask Chris, do you advertise as organic? I mean, I know you talk about fresh, but how much of your produce is organic?
Well, we use no herbicides or insecticides or anything, but I'm not sure we can be considered organic yet. So we're I think we're more considered natural, because we may have some compost that the animals may have had some herbicide in them, and therefore it may be in the compost. So we're not completely organic, but yeah. And there's also a process you have to go through to be considered organic. So we just consider ourselves what they call natural, which is we don't use any insecticides or herbicides or pesticides.
Well done. Well done.
Yeah,
Chris,
I'm going to real quick, Caesar, there's a process to that as far as organic goes. Like Chris mentioned, there is a certification process, but also, so you can't market your food organic if you do not have that USDA label or whatever that is. So yeah, a lot of people who grow, and like Chris is growing, will say that it's natural. You can say like, oh yeah, it's naturally grown. We don't add anything to it. So there's definitely different levels in the language if you're selling your fruits that you have to use. So you don't get after. Sorry, Caesar, go.
I was just going to ask, have you had any conversation with a food city? I mean, the big food stores or Kroger or Whole Foods you mentioned, or any of those people as to why don't have a store in the 37915 zip code?
No, sir. We haven't had that conversation. We have been talking with Whole Foods because we are working on getting a co-op started. So down the road. So yeah, but no, we haven't had that conversation with the food chains.
And we might see a difference since this was a census year. A part of the census is, when they redo the populations, that information goes out to corporations and different, they look at that. Oh, look, that part of town's had a 50% growth in 10 years. And so that's how some of these bigger industries come in. I just hope it's not more I hope it doesn't put us more in what you called a food swamp, Chris. That would be not, that'd be bad. Anyone else have any questions? All right, well, with that said, thank you so much, Chris. That was very educational. I learned a few terms today, like food apartheid and food swamp. I didn't know about those, so I really appreciate learning something new every day. And if there's any other questions that anyone has, Chris's email is in the chat. And otherwise, I look forward to seeing everyone. If we don't see you, happy Thanksgiving. I hope everyone has a great holiday. And with that said, I'm going to end the meeting. Thank you.
All right. Chris, thanks very much.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much. Take care.